Hey, I'm Scott Kirshner with InnoLead. I'm here with Alex Slawsby, my colleague, and special guest, Steve Blank. He runs an amazing blog. He's the author of the Startup Owner's Manual and an adjunct professor at Stanford. Steve, we want to talk about innovation theater today. And I'm curious, would you give us your definition of innovation theater and why do you see it as a distraction, or why can it be a negative thing for companies?
Well, innovation theater is pretty simple. It's when large companies or companies at all decide to run accelerators or incubators or things that they see startups doing inside and thinking that somehow that's the magic fairy dust of actually creating new value for the company. But in fact, what it actually usually creates is coffee cups, lanyards, posters, and very little output that moves the top or bottom line. And the reason why, if I can, is pretty simple, is that, while startups are not larger versions of small versions of large companies, companies are not larger versions of startups. Startups have process, procedures, KPIs, OKRs, et cetera, for repeatable and executable scale. Innovation in a startup is 100% of the company. Innovation inside of a large corporation might be a small fraction, and those processes and procedures that we need for scale actually mostly strangle innovation in its crib. And unless you build an innovation pipeline that actually connects innovation to execution, you end up having those existing systems kind of just reject the antibodies. So that's the short version of a great question.
Alex, do you have a different take on innovation theater? Obviously, I think we all would agree coffee mugs are probably not enough to get innovation to happen in an established organization. But what's your take?
Yeah, I think the way I look at it, right, is that innovation is a solution to get jobs done within an organization, right? So much like the whole, milkshake story that Clay put together. I worked for Clay and come from that school of thought. Innovation is the solution to a problem, right? And quite often that's growth or transformation, whatever it might be as an outcome. But I do think there are situations in which innovation theater actually might be what the doctor ordered. And what I mean by that is if the key job to be done is, help our organization look innovative or forward thinking, because the growth we can generate might come from, say, big enterprise customers signing on because they know they're aligning themselves with a forward-looking vendor, then in that case, you actually may not need to generate real growth from the innovation activities themselves. You might just need to show that the organization is innovative. And so in that case, Steve, I'm thinking, why not, not confuse yourself? Is it about, growth from innovation, or is it about, growth because the company looks innovative? Don't confuse, don't try to do both. If it really is innovation theater is the answer, just look the part and focus on that. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think what you described, Alex, is that in your definition, innovation theater is more marketing bullshit for the company. And that's fine. That's not usually why people set up. I'd rather be spending our money on marketing or actually give it to the existing product development groups. I hear you. The other part about, setting up accelerators and all these things inside of companies without figuring out the end-to-end processes is it does create innovation culture and help shape culture and language around innovation. But again, I want to go back to where I've seen these things fail and turn into theater, is not having the hard conversations of, gee, where does the output of these internal accelerators go? Is engineering going to take these or instead say, which I almost always hear is, well, these are unbudgeted and unscheduled activities. We'll get to them next year. Or sales say, well, these are all channel conflicts. Or legal say, no, or marketing says this will destroy our brand. I mean, you hear every one of these objections and all of them are right. But in fact, if you had an end-to-end conversation early on when you were setting these things up, you actually would have understood these bottlenecks, had these folks as coaches and mentors inside of a pipeline, and actually started producing things at scale. Or you would have decided that the company is culturally incapable of innovating internally, and M&A or acquisitions or sometimes joint ventures are actually more amenable for the company's culture.
Alex, can I give you either the last question or the chance of a rebuttal or to kind of make a wrap-up point here?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a rebuttal at all. I think, Steve makes some excellent points as always. I think ultimately, I think it comes back to alignment on what the job to be done is for innovation, and what defines success, and therefore what those metrics are. And in fact, from my perspective, if you're trying to look innovative and that's the right answer, then don't invest tons of people, time, and money into all kinds of innovation capabilities that aren't optimized to look innovative. Go with glass and MacBooks and foosball tables or whatever it is, so you can take people on tours, and then you might get those big enterprise contracts, and that might be great. If it really is growth, then hey, put together a lean startup team and set them in some place off the way with very constrained resources, and say, have at it like a startup. But don't confuse and try to do both at once, because I don't think you're going to get optimal outcomes on either.
So it sounds like, Alex, you're talking about, if the point is sales, marketing, generating excitement, some of the theatrical stuff can work there. Steve, I'm curious if you've ever seen innovation theater serve a constructive purpose, just from the point of view of getting people's attention, like getting them to show up and be engaged. Or do you always view it as having kind of a negative repercussion eventually, where people say, oh, we had Innovation Day in 2019 and we have never had another Innovation Day since then. So it makes innovation seem like kind of a passing phase.
Yeah, Scott, that's a great question. I've never thought of it till you just asked it about, what does it feel like at first when it's good, and then what's the downside? I think innovation theater is kind of somewhere between heroin and fentanyl. It kind of feels great at first, but then the coming down is really pretty destructive, because what happens is when these products don't end up being deployed or end up in political food fights or saboteurs or internally, et cetera, your best people just simply leave. And that's, in fact, the antithesis of what you want. The good news is, if I can, is that there's a new construct I've seen large companies adopting, that instead of incubators and accelerators, some are adopting both internal venture studios or working with external ones, which is a different model than we've used so far at scale. I mean, they've been around since IdeaLab in 1999 and then got resurrected about 10 years ago again. But I see companies kind of experimenting with that as well, as a model both internally and externally. So I think we're going to see more experimentation to try to do more in innovation as delivered versus innovation theater in the next couple of years.
Love it. It feels like venture studios, that's another topic that we should definitely discuss. But Alex, Steve, I really appreciate the time. This is great. And would love to see if you want to post a comment below. Innovation theater, have you seen it used productively? Have you seen it have negative repercussions? We'd love to hear from you.